Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Anastacia. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and thanks for joining me on today's video. I thought I would get ready for the day and just kind of have a little chit chat with you and talk about how I moved from Canada to the UK. I do already have a video about this, but it is more about how to do it as a student, and I'm just going to talk about my general life in Canada, moving to the UK. I thought that might be interesting to anybody who's thinking of moving abroad. I'm just using these really cute little floral clips, to clip my hair out of my face. So like I mentioned before, I do have a video on moving from Canada to the UK, but it is from the perspective of a student and kind of knowing how that whole process worked. So if you are in that situation and you want more information about that, I'll link the video in the cards and you can watch that. It goes into depth about how I pick schools, the visa process, stuff like that. For those of you that don't know, I moved from Calgary, Alberta, Canada in September 2020, and I moved to Leeds, and I'm still in Leeds actually. So years later, I'm still here and I'm loving it. Also, if I'm looking this way, it's just because that's where my mirror is. So I moved here in the autumn of 2020 and I was studying law at the University of Leeds. So I did a 2-year law degree at the University of Leeds. It was really interesting. It was a bit weird because I moved under the impression that I would need to be here for in-person classes, and that wasn't actually the case, but they didn't really know what was going on either. So I spent a lot of time alone in my first year. It was extremely isolating, really hard, but I actually don't regret it. A lot of people have asked me if I had wished that I stayed home for that first year and then came back later, or if I just like changed my mind at all. Like would I have done it in hindsight, knowing that that would have been my experience? And the thing is, I was in a weird situation in Calgary where I didn't have a full-time job because I had recently gotten laid off because the company I was working for closed, and I was just working like odd jobs here and there, and I was just kind of in and around all over the place. I was doing some freelance work, I was working at a spin studio, I was working at a bakery, I was just like all over the place. So I didn't really feel like I had a plan, and I was kind of just looking for a way out, and I knew that I wanted to move abroad at some point in my life. So this kind of just seemed like a perfect scenario, really. I was keen on going to law school. I kind of wanted to do it just so that I didn't in like 25 years go, oh, I wish I had done it. I didn't really know what to expect. If I'm being 100% transparent, I did little to no research really in the logistics of moving and doing all of that. I kind of really just took a leap of faith on myself and was like, you know what, at least if you go on a student visa and you hate it, you can come back, you don't have to stay. And plot twist, I loved it. But deep down I just knew I would. I knew I would love living here, and it's been an amazing experience. So I finished my law degree at the University of Leeds, and then I decided to do the LPC at the University of Law. I was again in a very like weird state where I didn't really know what I was doing. Visa situations are very crazy when you're here, and like nobody, unless you have a student visa or any kind of visa, I don't think you'll ever understand that craziness and that intensity and the pressure that it puts on living your life. It's really hard to convey that to somebody who just doesn't experience it, if I'm honest. You can't relate when your livelihood and your ability to stay in the country that you want to live in is like up in the air. It makes it really hard. So I basically decided to do the LPC, and that honestly was like the first true inclination and true representation of like what a life in law would look like. And I did it, and I did it well, and I enjoyed it, but there was something in me that was just telling me that that wasn't the thing that I wanted to be doing for the rest of my life, and I knew I had a fallback. So ultimately I graduated from the LPC, again, did really well, it was fine. Like, it's very hard and it's taxing and it's a lot of work, but I'm glad I did it, and you just don't know until you try. So that's what I always kind of like account myself with, is the fact that I did it. I've accomplished it. I could always go back to it if I feel so inclined, but right now and for my near future, can't really see that happening. While I was wrapping up the LPC, I found a job in graphic design, and that is what I'm still doing. So I'm, yeah, working as a graphic designer. I'm having a really nice time. I really love being creative and having a creative outlet. That's why I've always really liked creating content on social media and stuff. But that is, to summarize, how I got from Canada to the UK and how I'm staying. I'm currently on a graduate visa, and yeah, just taking it day by day. Let's talk about life in the UK. It's great. I feel like I get that question a lot as an international student, or I still say international student. I'm not a student anymore. I get that question a lot, like, oh, why would you leave? Like, the UK is not the place to be, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, every time someone says that to me, I'm like, the grass is always greener on the other side. You always think that there's better out there, and then you go and it's not that different or what you expected or anything. But again, like I've kind of said, I've always kind of known since I was a teenager that living in the UK was something that I wanted to do. I definitely thought that I was a London only kind of person, but as I've kind of grown up and reevaluated my priorities and what I'm actually looking for in my life, I've really grown to enjoy the fact that I can go to London and I can have an amazing weekend and come back up here and not feel so crowded and so overwhelmed all the time. I really, really like the ease of travel in the UK. I mean, the trains, they suck. Don't get me wrong, they're not great. And I feel like in the few years that I've lived here, I've seen a price increase in trains, and the reliability of trains is really off. I think the last 4 trains that I've gotten on have all been delayed up to, I think the longest I waited was like an hour and a half for a train for 20 minutes. It was a 22-minute train to get from Leeds to York, and I waited an hour and a half for it. I hate it, but again, like, it is just so fun being able to get around the country. I mean, trains do make it so easy. I don't drive here. Obviously, I had a license in Canada and I drove all the time, but I don't drive here. I want to learn, but I'm intimidated. I think there's like a lot of factors. I never drove stick in Canada, so the idea of driving stick here is kind of scary. I don't know anybody that has an automatic car. Otherwise, I would like definitely learn to do it, but the idea of driving stick kind of terrifies me while it being on the other side of the car and the other side of the road, so that's a bit scary. I live like pretty central to where I want to be, so it's nice to have everything kind of at arm's reach. That is really, really nice. Again, yeah, commuting through the UK, being able to hop on a plane and have a 2-hour flight to Europe, like, that is an incredible thing that I never take for granted. That, I mean, like, 15-year-old me would be dying about. And that, I always try to think of that whenever I'm having a bad day or I'm just a bit like meh about life. I always just think like the 15-year-old version of me is dying. Like, they're just so happy that this is where I've ended up and that I'm building a life here. It's just so special. And yeah, I just always think of that version of myself and I'm just like, she can't wait to see what's coming. So, not to say that living abroad doesn't have its challenges. I find it really hard living away from all my family. I miss them a lot. You know, obviously I FaceTime with everybody and I text them and stuff, but that's really difficult. I'm quite lucky that my boyfriend's family is very welcoming and lovely. I see them most weekends and that's like really, really nice. So it's always nice knowing that there's people like in your corner, and yeah, that's lovely. I'm quite lucky that way. Making friends is really hard when you're in your mid to late 20s. The fact that I'm in my late 20s is insane to me. Like, that is genuinely insane, but it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I live with a girl who is fantastic. I love her so much, and that's really, really nice. I'm like friendly with some people at work and stuff, but I do think like building those real true friendships is really, really hard, and that's definitely something that I'm like still working on and trying to do. I'm like I feel like I'm a quite anxious and nervous person, so the idea of going to like an event or something to like meet people is really intimidating, but I definitely see the value in it because it's hard. It's hard. I'm trying to think of some like major differences that I've noticed, like having come from Canada. I think it's crazy that people in the UK generally don't have dryers. I think that's whack. Like, why are we hanging laundry out to dry? I don't get it. Tesco meal deals, very serious business on this side. Like, very, very serious. People will judge you for your meal deal combo. It's serious business. Greggs is a big deal. Greggs is like the Tim Hortons of the UK. The Greggs sausage roll is a very big deal and a fan favorite. I am not a huge fan, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I like it. I have tried it many times. I definitely prefer it if it's warm, you know, when you go to Greggs and you're just like, oh, is it warm? And they just give you that like, no. I'm like, why? I love Primark. That's not surprising. I knew I would. TK Maxx and HomeSense are good. Not great, they're good. You gotta go on a good day. I feel like I found the best pieces specifically at the Signal Hill Winners in Calgary. If you know, you know. I think it was like, was it like Tuesday or Thursday mornings or something when they put out their new stock? It was really good. Let's talk about the accent for a minute. Half the time, still, 4 years later, I don't have a clue what people are saying. Like, some of the deep accents, I couldn't tell you what people are saying. I try really hard. Sometimes it takes me a minute to like process what someone's saying and then I can reply, but it is difficult sometimes. I do try my best though. And I feel like just the vernacular, like the choice of words that people use can be varying, like quite different. For example, one recently at work, we were talking about all of us individually bringing a dish for like a lunch. I called it a potluck because that's what I know it as. Everybody was calling it a fuddle. What the f is a fuddle? I've never heard that in my life. So that was like really interesting and I was very confused by fuddle. Just little things, lift, bin instead of garbage. People don't refer to things as blocks here. You know, if you're like, oh, walk 4 blocks and take a right. Like, that's not how it goes. It is quite crazy. I haven't been back to Canada in 2 years. I'm coming back at the end of the year and I'm very excited for it. But I haven't been back in a few years and it's crazy how much you just forget, or how people will ask you about, oh, like, what's the equivalent in Canada? And I'm just like, it genuinely just feels like a lifetime ago. Like, it's so unbelievably crazy because I had all of my major developmental years in Canada, but it just seems like forever ago. And it's so crazy that that time in my life is over and like this is where I'm doing everything. It's just so interesting and like it's so special when you get to share that with people. Like when my parents came to visit, that was so fun. Getting to show them all the spots and all the places that they'd heard me talk about, but being able to like show them that and they get to see it and experience it firsthand was like really special. The fact that I'm wearing a Kylie Cosmetics lip liner is like insane and I don't want to talk about it. I feel like I'm reverting back to my like 18-year-old self, which is crazy. Anyways, I feel like I yapped for a really long time and I'm not even sure if this video made a whole lot of sense. I hope that that was interesting. I feel like this was a really jumbly, random, rambly video and I don't really know what I've said and if it's interesting at all, but hopefully somebody found it interesting and is curious about life in the UK. I can make more parts to this if people have questions or anything on the whole move, being a student, not being a student, like visa questions. I can try to help. I barely understand it myself, but yeah, if anybody has any questions, let me know. You can ask me on Instagram or YouTube and I can either respond to your DM, or if there's enough questions, I'll make a second video and talk about it more in depth. But yeah, I am ready for the day. Just did a simple little everyday makeup look, very short and sweet, just like this video. That's everything for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video very soon. Bye!